What things did you do as a kid that you now realize is extremely weird? When I was around 8 years old, I liked the way clean towels tasted. Something I really enjoyed was putting a towel over a straw and drinking Kool-Aid through it. My mother wasn't a fan of having white towels covered with red spots, so she put a stop to it pretty quick. I used to stand naked in my bedroom window and try to stay as still as possible so the neighbors would think my parents had had a statue made of me. I would stand in different poses, too, so they'd think there were multiple dendronate statues which my parents would rotate around the house. The way I saw it, only important people had statues built of them. I wanted the neighbors to know they lived near a pretty important guy. Found a cat skull buried in the garden. Pulled the teeth out and put them under my pillow for what I thought would be easy money. When I was a kid, in the 80s, I had very strict teachers. Any form of back-talking or, God forbid, swearing would get you a quick slap and a fast march to the head teacher's office to explain yourself. My teacher once sat me down for a talk, as happened fairly often, which was basically her just berating me. In the middle of this she suddenly stopped and told me I needed to keep my eyes under control, because I had this terrible nervous habit of twitching my eyes when she was talking to me. In actual fact, I was tracing out imaginary swear words with my eyes. Basically, drawing out things like piss off and shut up. Tracing the letters with my eyes as if they were right in front of her face. I didn't realize she could see my eye movements, I don't know why. As an adult it's obvious that my eyes were darting all over the place and looking crazy. But child me thought that it was subtle enough that it was unnoticeable. And that I was being super sneaky. As soon as I realized she could see it, I stopped. But looking back, probably the funniest part to me now is how much it must have unnerved her. And she never did know the reason for it. To her, I must have just been the weird kid with the crazy eyes. I used to have science experiments in the bathroom sink. Meaning, I'd go to the bathroom and lock the door. Once in I'd make sure the sink drain was shut and then proceed to add every cleaner, chemical, shampoo etc. under the sink to the sink in hopes of a reaction. Never got one. But it also never stopped me from trying. In hindsight I probably could have killed myself if I had mixed the wrong stuff. I obviously didn't. In grade 1 we would sit in a group on the floor in front of the teacher while she read us stories. I would sit at the back of the group against the wall and pull my pants halfway down my bum. I liked feeling the cool ground, wall against my bare butt. I would add several drops of Tabasco to my unsweetened iced tea. I called it Asian tea despite knowing Tabasco and Lipton were in no way Asian. I also didn't like it very much but made myself drink it so that I could understand the Asian community better. Asian friends I have now are still baffled at the connection I tried to make. Edit. I guess all the obligatory thanks for everyone. I left out one detail because I didn't think this would catch on. But I'd only do this with my red Kool-Aid cup from a set we had that included a red pitcher. Not sure if that changes things. When I was in elementary school I would use one hand to cover my butt when I showered because I was afraid that a monster would warp through the bathroom wall and attack my butthole. When I was around 5, I would basically act like a train and follow the lines on the playground whilst also using my hands as those little rail things on the wheels, coupling rods. I would also look directly up when it was cold and use my mouth as a chimney. Honestly, it must have looked like I was insane. I would walk out the bathroom after taking a shit and spread my ass cheeks to whoever was in the living room and ask, "Is my butt clean?" One time it was the guy cleaning our carpet. I used to eat mechanical pencil lead. No idea how I got into that habit. But I think I enjoyed the crunchiness of it. Did it for a little while. But showed a classmate and she immediately went to the teacher who then called my mom who scolded me and told me to stop. Goodbye 0.7 millimeters. You will be missed. I used to eat tissues as a kid. My mom found out one day and yelled at me to stop. As any sane parent would do, so I started eating them in secret. Sneaking away with a tissue box to another room to eat a tissue or two. Until one day when I was about 5 years old I had to go to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I had trouble breathing through my nose. Before my operation I was in the hospital and I overheard one of the nurses say that they just needed to remove the excess tissue in my nose. Naturally I thought that the tissues I had eaten had started getting clogged up in my nose and I never ate a tissue again. I made the realization at 14 that it was muscle tissue in my nose and not the actual tissues I was eating. Edit. I'm glad to learn that I'm not alone with my strange habit. Also wanted to add that I saw some people mention getting tissue stuck in their ears, and I had a close call in primary school when I rolled a piece of paper into a really small ball and put it into my ear. If you haven't realized, I wasn't the brightest child. Had to go to the medical bay to get it taken out with tweezers. A girl, used to sit back to front on the toilet to pee. My reasoning was that way it sounded like my dad peeing, and then the monsters wouldn't try to grab me. Childhood anxiety is wild. Blink at things because I thought it would help with my memory. I would imagine my eyes were like cameras and each blink was a shutter click. When I was 4 or so, we lived in a flat in the USA that had this massive concrete structure behind it. I've no idea what it was. But at the bottom of it was at least a foot of dank water. Trees, etc. I was convinced it was a swimming pool. And begged my mom to let me swim in it. No, absolutely not, she said. It's full of snapping turtles. And they will snap off your fingers. I also wanted to eat all these berries that were on local bushes. No, absolutely not. Those are poisonous. They'll make you very sick and then dead. Clever me. I put the two ideas together and thus spent that summer throwing poison berries into the swamp structure in order to kill all the turtles. 4 years old. Stuck on murder mode for 3 months. For much of 2nd grade. For some reason, my parents let me pack my own lunch. I had 2 sandwiches of choice. One was what I called a triple butter sandwich, peanut butter, apple butter, and butter. A little strange. But okay. The other was a lettuce sandwich. White bread, mayo, and a few leaves of iceberg lettuce. I have no idea how they let me eat that for most of a full school year. Edit. Jesus Christ, this got a lot more replies than I thought it would. I have no regrets about the triple butter sandwich. Apple butter, if you've never had it, is pretty delicious. And I'm relatively sure I put butter in there just because it made sense. Because they were all butter. Right? But it wasn't bad. Apple butter, to answer the frequent question, is sort of like an apple jam. Basically imagine the process for making applesauce, but you cook it down longer and it gets all caramelized and concentrated. It's great. It's more letting your kid make a sandwich from a little bit of lettuce that I question. I appreciate a lot of people saying it was good parenting because they were making sure I had something I'd eat. But you're being charitable. It was more that they weren't great parents and probably didn't pay attention. I wasn't a fussy kid at all. Unless you tried feeding me asparagus. I'd eat pretty much anything. And to the concerned Redditor, who reached out to Reddit about me. That's kind of hilarious. Running any lollipop or sucker I ate under the faucet water after every lick because somehow it tasted better after being rinsed. Lol. I used to keep the last piece of food I was eating in my mouth even for an hour. For example, if I was eating pizza, the last piece of the last slice would remain in my mouth while I went playing and running around. I stopped at the age of 9. When I almost died of asphyxiation. Saying some gibberish all the time and thinking that it is probably meaningful in some languages. I felt smart as hell. I didn't know that people could see my eyes move and used to have my head in one direction and look with my eyes somewhere else. It wasn't before a girl saw me looking at her and said, "What are you looking at?" I figured that out. I was 7 or 8 years old and my mind was blown. My eyes move? I lived in an apartment building on the 3rd floor and was basically facing a very busy street. The street was called Main Street. Anyway, it was a newer luxury building, so it had long, wide windows. I would always stand on my windowsill and look out. One day I decided it would be a great idea to just get completely butt-ass naked and stand in front of the window. And press my naked body on the window. I have no idea what the fuck I was thinking. I have no idea who the fuck saw me until this day. I have no idea why I ever did such a thing. Thanks for the likes. Unfortunately, this still isn't the worst of weirdest thing I've done. I've done something that I find so sickening I didn't want to share it with the web. I was a fucked up little girl. Every time I ever turned a full circle for any reason, I would always turn a full circle the other way as well to make sure that it was balanced because I didn't want to turn one way more than the other. Obligatory edit. Thank you for the gold stranger. That was my first one. Smiley face. And yes, for those of you asking, I still am like this. I make music and whenever first pan something, make the sound left or right a bit. I always do it in the opposite direction that I really want to do it at first because I know my ears will tell me to move it the other way to even it out. On some of the beats that I post I switch the panning halfway just for people like me lol. I used to run a purified dust cartel. My school had a sandbox area with eucalyptus trees. And I'd assign workers to throw sand over the trees so that the larger pieces would get filtered out by the bark. The remaining powder was labeled purified dust. Surprisingly, a huge number of kids were interested in buying our purified dust. Our currency was plastic BB gun pellets. And a pinch of dust was worth 5 pink pellets. Different colored pellets had different values. And freshly made dust cost more than old dust. There were even different companies of people creating purified dust at different trees. We'd devise plans to sabotage each other so that our own company could earn more profit. We were basically 6-year-old assholes running a fake cocaine business. Weird times. Edit. For the people asking about what I do now. I'm actually working towards a degree in music performance and education. I immensely enjoyed running fake businesses as a 6-year-old. But I've since realized that I kind of suck at real-world economics. Sorry to disappoint those who expected me to become a successful cocaine dealer. For the people wondering what kids did with the purified dust, most of them kept it in Ziploc bags or jars as a status symbol. The more dust you had, the richer you were. Some kids even decorated their jars with glitter glue or tried to steal dust from other people's jars. Looking back on it, I'm surprised teachers weren't more concerned about the whole thing. I would come up with all sorts of supernatural and conspiracy theories to explain the world around me. I thought people were spying on me. If anyone laughed outside while I was on the toilet, I'd be convinced that they could see me and were laughing at me. I wouldn't characterize it as paranoia. It was more like extreme self-centeredness. I had trouble comprehending that there was a world out there that didn't involve me in any way. This went on until I was about 15 to 16, I think. I used to waste a shit ton of water by turning on the shower and lay on the floor next to it with a towel over my body and fall asleep with a tiny bit of water splashing on my face. I used to imagine I was in a cave and it was raining outside for some reason. Ah, good times. Berry roadkill. Random bones I'd find. Fish scales. ECT. It just seemed more respectful than letting them sit there. Especially after it got to the point that buzzards and vultures wouldn't even eat it. I once took a dick pic on my dad's phone because I thought it would be funny. I was 7 and I didn't know what dick pics were or what pedophilia was or anything. My dad never brought it up. Update. I asked my dad about it. He doesn't remember it apparently. I ate cupcake wrappers after finishing the cupcakes. Like I would just suck on it, the paper ones, and chew until there was zero flavor. Then spit it out. I once wandered out of the open back door in the townhouse we lived in when I was 5. Found the biggest pit bull I could and made friends with it. Unfortunately, when my dad came to collect me, the dog was not so happy about it. Said the dog chased him away and he had to talk me into coming home from a distance lol. He still swears to this day I have magical animal powers. Had a blast talking to all you guys. Been up all night because of an unfortunate choice of coffee at midnight. But now the time has come. This is by far my most popular post on Reddit. Having more than doubled the karma I started with yesterday lol. Thank you all and good day. Yeah. Pooped my pants. Then picked the poop out of my underwear and hid it under the sofa so my parents wouldn't know. I for some reason had one mission as a kid. I would try my best to make people believe I was the smartest kid ever. I would talk gibberish to make people think I could talk another language. I would also make words up to give the impression that my vocabulary was so advanced. But it all backfired when I lost the spelling bee in the first round, then I failed first grade. I was a sad kid. Me and my mates used to shit on the road, then wait until a car ran over it, then celebrated. Had an imaginary friend that I would make bets with. That I was guaranteed to win. The prize being ludicrous amounts of imaginary money. Hey Joe, I bet you $1 figillion septrillion dollars I can hold my breath for 3 seconds. God, I was rich back then. I have a memory of when I was maybe 3 or 4. I tried to nurse a kitten LMAO. Not me. But my partner used to keep kiwis, the fruits, as pets. He would name them and take care of them. Until his mom took them to blend into a smoothie. And #X200B. That was a rude awakening for him. Piss on my closet floor. When I was a wee lad I would wander about the house naked and pull back me foreskin to show visitors. I don't do that anymore though. I would wash things made of rubber. Like the kind of rubber that already feels slightly tacky. Then pat it dry with a really fluffy towel so the rubber would get kind of fuzzy from the towel fluff. Then I would just touch it until the fuzz wore off. Turns out I was just autistic and no one had figured it out yet. I still have a thing about textures but in a much less weird way. A few years ago, I was visiting my aunt and uncle. And they had some old film from the 80s of my extended family on a camping trip. There was a full playset there including a trampoline. And my mother was filming my cousins and I playing. I'm not sure why my aunt and uncle had the tape instead of my mother. But whatever. I was about 3 at the time. And my mother panned the camera away from my cousins playing on a swing set towards me on the trampoline. Except I was lying face down on the trampoline. Full on thrusting my hips into it as hard as I could. Now, I don't specifically remember doing that. But I have a pretty good idea of how my little mind worked at the time. I'm certain that I was just trying to see if I could build up enough force to lift myself off the trampoline mat. Or flip myself over. Still, not exactly the best thing to be watching with your aunt and uncle. Who threatened to save it and show at my wedding. Joke's on them, I pocketed the tape when they weren't looking. When I was around 4 to 5 years old I remember I used to sneak downstairs very early in the morning and search for any cups with that 1/2 of cold sweet sugary coffee in. And drink them before anyone got up. Guess I may have been the youngest caffeine addict in Britain. Edit. Back in the day my parents drank camp coffee. I don't know if this is available outside of the UK but it's essentially a thick coffee syrup which you use with hot water and milk. I loved it. So much better than instant. Double edit. The hazards of doing this were higher than you might think. Both my parents were heavy smokers so there was a high probability of there being a dog end, cigarette butt, dropped in a cup somewhere. I wasn't that thirsty. Third edit. Nearly 6,000 upvotes? I'm surprised this is still running lol. Hope some of you have tried a few camp experiment coffees. I liked the taste of rock. My mother told me I used to pick up rocks and taste them when I was 3. I wonder if I ever had my own gourmet and if I had different types of meals, like bricks and shit. Edit. I'll answer here mostly. 1. I am not a gore and I'm very much more like Kirby IG2. Why is my first post that blew up about me eating rocks? Edit 2. I like how I wasn't the only one. It's nice to know we got fellow cement mixers on here. Edit 3. I'ma use this post to give a fact. If you look at anything, you'd immediately know the texture it would feel like if you licked it. Carrot, gold FCK Yees Woo. Several friends and myself had a fascination with writing in code. We had little pocket notebooks full of codes and deciphering instructions, also in code, and would write volumes of notes between us in code. Notebooks got confiscated by a teacher. We wouldn't tell her how to decode. She tried to get us in trouble. Parents thought it was hilarious. I'm almost 60 and I still have one of these notebooks around somewhere. When I was around 6 or 7 I discovered if I tightened my ass and some other muscles I could make my pee-pee go up. I was quite proud of this accomplishment. And showed it of as much as I could. I made my pee-pee bounce up and down in front of friends and family. Especially after bath time when I had practiced. Edit. Thank you kind stranger for my first award ever. Edit 2. Another award. Wow. Thanks. I picked up ants and licked their butts. Tasted like citrus. I was about 10 or 11. When I was in 3rd grade one would dress as Little Bo Peep while I took my poodle for walks and ask my neighbors if they have seen my other sheep. I mixed ketchup and mustard together and called it my secret sauce. I used it as a dip for Fritos. I was convinced I'd make millions off it. Edit. Wow. My first 5 kelvins. Found out that the air had germs in it and tried not to breathe too much. I would only sit on the toilet with the shower cap on my head. I loved the way the air that comes out the back of vacuum smelt. I used to follow the vacuum cleaner around while my mum was cleaning with my face against the vent. I would turn it on when other people were not around and smell it. Also, I'm not sure if this is normal or not, but when I was about 8 I used to run around with nothing but a toll singing, Doona 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 Flashman, to the tune of Batman. Then show everyone my dick. Edit. Wow. Thanks for my very first award. I would go out to my local cemetery and talk to dead people. I would find someone whose anniversary it was. Either birthday or death. And just wish them well. I don't think it's weird now. I still do it. But I definitely thought it was weird at the time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.